Hey, BATT Family, Scott here. Now, before you listen to my first episode of the Games That Made Us, Mark and I wanted to take some time and give you a little bit of an update. We have absolutely enjoyed putting out all the content that we have over the last month, which includes 4 episodes and several little specials. That being said, we need to slow down a little bit. We are both very busy with our families and our jobs and everything else that happens outside of this podcast. That being said, we are going to move from a once a week release to an every other week release. This little supplement will count as a break for us, and we're going to probably do one more Games That Made Us before you get a regular episode. And then you will start seeing episodes every other week, with a filler probably in between. There will also be written content launching on our website, boredallthetime.com. Thank you again so much for all the compliments, comments, and even the criticisms, because Mark and I have been working really, really hard to make sure that you, the members of the BATT family, are welcome at our table. And now, on to my episode of the Games That Made Us. Hey everyone, Scott here. And before I start with my first entry into the Games That Made Us, I just wanted to take the time to thank each and every one of you who happened to stop in and listen to our podcast. Mark and I have a real love for the board gaming hobby, and we really hope that we can pass that love on to every one of you. We hope that you enjoy your stay, and welcome to the BATT family. Go to the Head of the Class is a classic roll and move board game. It was published originally by Chad Valley Company Limited in 1936, and then it was published by Milton Bradley, which is now owned by Hasbro, and then Go to the Head of the Class was last produced by Winning Moves USA in 2013. My grandmother was very much the initial catalyst for my love of learning, music, the Golden Girls, and playing games. Weekends at my grandmother's often start off with a trip to Pizza Hut or Noble Romans for dinner, then either to Dunkin' Donuts or Baskin Robbins ice cream for treats for the evening, and then finally to her house. Once at her house, I would clamber down the basement to bring up the green vinyl covered card table and matching chairs. I swear that these things were in everybody's household during the 80s. Now, while I was downstairs, my grandmother would be pulling out the board games for the evening or possibly a deck of cards. But we would play these things while we waited to watch the antics of the 4 Floridian ladies to come on. Now, when I played this game, it was in its 21st edition, and it was released back in 1978. And I played this version during most of the 80s, but its premise of the game was simple. You roll 2 dice and be asked a question based on what number you rolled. Other determining factors for the questions were dependent on what grade you were in and what difficulty the questions were. These difficulty levels were junior, intermediate, and senior, and these questions were on random topics. Now, that being said, in future versions of the games, they had you going through the classrooms. And typically these classrooms were based on a very specific subject matter. Literature, science, history, and the like. But in the version I played, these were all mixed together. Looking back, I remember how proud my grandma was when I would get to these advanced questions right. And as I got older, she would start off with the easy questions, but then would change it to the harder difficulty levels as we went on. I never realized it then, but as I continue to kind of look back for this segment, I realized that she did it because she loved seeing my mind blossom and bloom, and she did it from a place of love. Now, don't really remember how many spaces you moved or how you moved, but you would roll 2 dice, and if memory serves me correctly, but it probably doesn't, and feel free to contact us if you actually know how you moved. I think it was based on what you rolled. If you were correct, you got to move so many spaces forward based on the higher number on the 2 dice. And if you were wrong, you moved backwards for the spaces on the lower die. I mean, if that's wrong, it actually sounds like a really great idea, personally. Looking at the version that I had, thank you, Internet, there was also blue desks that were on the map in strategic spots. It made an X. You could visibly see this X. And if you landed on it, you could draw a luck card. Now, the luck card could be anything from you've forgotten to sharpen your pencil, move back spaces, you aced the test, move forward so many spaces. So it really was very much a random thing that allowed you to sometimes get an advantage over your opponent. But when you got to the end of the level, because all these desks were in rows, you had to do an examination. And the examination questions were always random. It was a little deck of yellow cards, while the luck cards were green. And you would draw one, and depending on what level you were reading for, so whether it was junior, intermediate, or senior, you got a question based on that premise. So kind of had a nice random difficulty. Once you got that examination question correct, that's when you got to advance to the next level. So the board was 8 rows of 10. There were blue desks that formed an X on the board. The very last desk on the row was red to let you know you had to stop. At the top of the board, where the finish line was 5 green desks. The 5 green desks stopped you. You could only progress one at a time. Once you hit that 80th desk and you got the question right, you won. My grandma and I played this game until she could really tell that I had memorized most of the answers to the questions. So once that happened, the game went back into its spot on her game shelf, right underneath the shelf with all the dish towels on them. That game sat there until my nephews got old enough to play with me, and I proceeded to crush them because I still remembered all the answers to the questions. The nice thing is that it spurned that love of learning in me. It made me really enjoy trivia games. In fact, Trivial Pursuit is still one of my favorite games, and it even has a story to go along with it that I might do in a future episode. That being said, Go to the Head of the Class was a fine basic game for the 80s. A little bit of luck. You did have to have some smarts, but it really did start the formula of me being a board game player. And it's this formula, this love I have of board games, and the fact that I can still remember Friday nights at my grandmother's house with that crazy, cheap, probably J.C. Penney's card table. Eating donut holes or eating mint chimp ice cream. Playing board games with my grandma is one of the reasons why this is on my list of one of the games that made us.